Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my review / ranking of Season 1 of Are You Afraid of the Dark. Before we start looking at each episode, let me know down below what your ranking of the season is. You can either rank all 13 episodes from your least favourite to your most favourite, or what I've said in my other rankings in the past is if you don't want to do all 13, maybe just put like your bottom 3 and your top 3, just so we can have a good idea of where the episodes fall into, which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and then we can see in the comments, if anybody comments, just kind of everyone's different opinion, everyone's different favourite episodes, and just how we all compare. I actually really like it on these ranking videos, even though I've not had a lot of feedback so far on them, but when I spoke to friends or people on Facebook and groups and stuff like that and comments, when people have different opinions to mine, I love that. So like if someone has an episode that I have near the top in their like least favourite, I think that's quite funny, and I really enjoy seeing other people's opinions, so don't be scared if your opinion's different to mine. We're human, everyone's going to have a different opinion, and that's great. So, let's jump into each episode, and at the end, after I've done all 13, then I'm going to look at each person. I'm going to hopefully get some text on screen, I hope, and we can look at who's told my favourite and least favourite, and look at Ahead Series 2. So, let's start my ranking of Season 1 of You Afraid of the Dark with the episode that for me was my least favourite of all 13, The Tale of the Hungry Hounds. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody that might have watched my reactions, or at least anyone that's seen Season 1 of You Afraid of the Dark. From what I hear, this is quite a popular choice for least favourite. That was a weird way to word it. But I think this is quite a common episode for people's least favourite of Season 1. It's just kind of uninteresting. For the couple that I have at the bottom, I think the thing they have in common for me is that they're both kind of boring. So with Hungry Hounds in particular, there just wasn't really much to like in this episode. It wasn't that I hated it. I don't hate any of these episodes. None of them that I found like detestable. But with Hungry Hounds, the main storyline was just kind of dull. We don't really follow these characters doing much. There's just Pam who's kind of trying to stop the situation. But even most of the episode, she's reverted to, what's happening? Stop. Let's go back. What's happening? Most of the time, we just spend the episode watching whatever the main character's called, walking around, telling this story, talking about Mon Petit Rouge, and it's just so dull, because it's just like, I don't care about this fox that you were friends with and singing with the birds and all that bullshit. Like, I want to see something creepy. And the scene in the barn was kind of cool, where the hounds were trying to get out to chase the fox, or maybe attack the people. That was kind of the most interesting part. But the characters were kind of uninteresting. The storyline was fairly dull. But the music was cool in this episode. It was really like kind of cheap mobile game music. But for me, this was just kind of a really boring episode. Didn't really have a lot going for it. The characters weren't all that to write home about. So yeah, that's why it's my least favourite episode of Season 1. In 12th place, unfortunately, another Kristen episode. The only other Kristen episode, The Tale of the Prom Queen. I actually liked this episode. The reason that I would say I put it at the bottom is because it does for me what is a fatal flaw, which the Hungry Hounds did as well, is that it's boring. There's episodes and shows that can be bad, but they can be quite entertaining, like some coming up. I don't think they're great episodes, but there's entertaining parts of it, there's characters that I like, there's bits of it that I found quite humorous. Whereas with Prom Queen and Hungry Hounds, they were just mostly dull. Prom Queen, I'd say, is above Hungry Hounds because I didn't dislike the main characters, they were okay, but they were kind of one note. But the main thing that elevated it above the bottom for me was the last scene, with the twist that the girl was Judy, and she was the prom queen all along, and she was a ghost, and then the car comes along really creepily in the fog, and she gets in the car, and it drives off into the distance. I quite liked that scene. The twist wasn't shocking, really. I think watching it back, it's kind of obvious that she's the prom queen from the start. And I like the end scene. It was just, again, a lot of the episode was repeating the same stuff over and over again. There's the story of Judy and the night of the prom is told about 3 times, and it's like, it feels like a filler. And what I noticed as well is that, from editing, the beginning of the episode, where Judy's in the graveyard, obviously she's not known as Judy at that point, I think she's known as Dee Dee. The beginning is so weird, because there's just a lot of shots of the graveyard. Just over and over again, there's a shot of the graveyard, shot of the graveyard, shot of the graveyard, shot of Judy walking, shot of the graveyard, shot of the graveyard. It does seem to drag. So like I said, the episode has some really bad pacing. The story was repeated too many times. And they could have done some creepy stuff with Ricky and the car throughout, like in the river, but they didn't. So yeah, wasn't the worst episode, but wasn't a good episode either. In 11th place, The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. I'm surprised this wasn't the last episode for me at the very bottom, because when I've said it before multiple times, but I have a semi-okay memory of the show, and looking back, this was one that I didn't enjoy at all as a kid. But watching it this time, thank God for Sean O'Shea. I can't do Irish accents, but every time I say Sean O'Shea, I have to kind of attempt it because it's just, you can't say it in a British accent. It's not as cool. He's the best part about this episode. He was a brilliant actor, was funny, was entertaining to watch, likeable as a character, and just I really enjoyed his performance. And the actual elements of the show itself, like looking back at it as an adult, was quite kind of cool, where it's like a play, but it's secretly real, where the spells are real and the potions real, but it all takes place within this fake setting. I like that. I thought that was quite a smart way to do it. It was kind of a good plan by what turned out to be the Banshee Aaron, and he was kind of cool visually. But I think for me, what I didn't like about the episode was just I wasn't overly into Aaron as a villain, or the main guy as a protagonist wasn't all that interesting. If it wasn't for Sean, I feel like this episode would have been maybe last. I'm not sure. I don't know, because it wasn't boring. I just wasn't invested like I am with some of the later episodes. You know, it just for me wasn't all that interesting. And that was an Eric story. I'm going to try and say along the way. So the bottom two have been Kristen, and 11th place was Eric. Okay. In 10th place, a Frank story. The only Frank story, A Tale of the Phantom Cab. This was quite a good way to start the show. It was a fairly easy story. It wasn't too scary. Wasn't that scary at all, really. But had a couple of creepy moments. Had some really funny moments. The main characters were kind of annoying, particularly the young kid. Just the way he spoke was kind of frustrating to me. I live on a very, very tiny street, so is there any need for these massive vehicles to go past it? Anyway, it was really nice to see Dr. Vink. I didn't realise he actually came into it in the very, very first episode, so it was kind of cool because he was in it so early on, and he's a recurring character throughout the series. Obviously, he's not been in it again in Series 1. I don't know whether he's in it like once a season, or whether that carries all the way through, or just for the first 5 seasons, which we'll get to. He was a good part of the episode. He was quite fun. I enjoyed the riddle aspect and the whole cab ride. And if you actually think about what's happening, it's this really dark story, because in the cab ride we learned that this has been happening for, what was it, 30 years, 40 years, where every night Flynn, the cab driver, takes people in who can't solve essentially Dr. Vink's riddles and crashes the tree and kills them. That's like thousands of people that he's killed. And that's presuming that they're all one person in the car. If there's 2 or 3 people in that taxi, there's way more than that. So it's just crazy that if you actually think about how dark this is a super dark story. But it's kind of, I think what I don't like is that the main characters were kind of irritating throughout. And maybe I would have liked it to be semi-creepier. Not that it has to be scary to be a good episode, because there's some episodes on the show that I really love, which aren't scary but are kind of fun. And there's later on episodes that are kind of just wacky and kind of not scary at all, but are really fun episodes. But for this one, the tone was good, but kind of just felt on that middle ground of not so bad that it's fun, not creepy, but kind of that's that middle kind of fine ground. Like, it's okay. In 9th place, A David Story, The Tale of the Twisted Claw. Now, this is the episode that was filmed first of the show, and I think watching the episode, it's kind of evident that it was filmed first. It does feel very different. It has a different vibe to it with the Midnight Society, and I'm not really introduced to the story so much. The story itself was very overdone. It's been told in so many different forms over the years that you get 3 wishes and the wishes go wrong because you don't word them correctly, or inevitably whatever grants the wishes twists it to be a negative thing. But this had some fun elements. Like, I really enjoyed what I called the barking tree, but was the dog that ended up tripping over Bastic in the 5,000 or 500 or whatever it was. And I enjoyed the car with the grandpa in it, and the fact that actually, again, another dark moment where the parents were in a car crash. Even though it's a cliche story, I do enjoy the story. I find that Wish episodes of programs are always really fun, and I enjoy seeing them get twisted when they're always meant to be quite good things. I actually quite liked the main character in this one, even though the friend of the main character was a bit of a bully at times. I think a lot of that was kind of his fear of not accepting what's happening was real. But overall, quite a fun episode, bit cliche, but fun. I enjoyed it. In 8th place, probably possibly a bit controversially, The Tale of Sorcerer's Apprentice by Betty Ann. Now, Betty Ann stories, for anyone that's watched the show and has a good knowledge of the show, Betty Ann stories are usually always near the top. The reason that I put this one so low is because whilst I enjoyed the episode and it is fun to watch, there are so many plot holes involved in the story. And there's quite a few that I mentioned in the episode, so I'll try not to go over all of them again. But off the top of my head, this woman put this thing in the water for years. It was never found. Kind of unrealistic. It's never explained why she needs kids to do this bidding. Like, she has all this stuff in place. She has the staff. She has all the orbs. She's obviously a servant of Goth and wants him to come forth. All it explains is that they need these belladonna leaves and all these chemicals to bring him forth. So why can she not do it? That I kind of found later on as quite an obvious plot hole. I had to thank Up All Night for that plot hole. Didn't think of that. It's the Are You Afraid of the Dark podcast. Brilliant. But yeah, why could she not bring forth Goth if she has all the relevant materials? The barrel of chlorine that's been left there for years, I don't believe would be still sat there. Goth's kind of on and off powers of what he can and cannot do. Like, he's meant to be powerful so he can stop people in the tracks, but then he's not very powerful yet because he can't do it to other people. Is it because he's enslaved that guy in the past? Why did the thing all taken out the snake's mouth make the kids lose kind of control but not Dean? There's just so many plot holes in this episode that whilst it could have been an episode, if it was tightened up a little bit story-wise, I think it could have been quite high. Because I enjoy the story of this shy kid who, if any other people are like me in school, introverted, shy, the chance to get power and get, like, control of people would have been awesome. I would have loved that. And I thought Goth was actually quite interesting to look at, especially when he's coming out of the pool. Just the bald head with the skin tone, because it looked like he had quite a bit of makeup on, and the weird tribally sort of Aztec-y costume he was wearing. He was quite visually intimidating, and I would have loved to know more about him and seen more, maybe a glimpse of his universe. But I just felt there were so many plot holes in this episode that I couldn't rate it very high, because it just doesn't all fit together, which is such a shame. I'm sorry guys if you don't agree, because I know it's quite a popular episode. In 7th place, the first story by our leader Gary, The Tale of the Super Specs. This surprises me because I know it's not a very popular episode. Not with everybody. I've said it multiple times. I'm on Facebook groups of You Afraid of the Dark. They're always listing their favourites. There's not many episodes that don't appear in people's favourites at some point. I know the Prom Queen has been in people's favourites, and that's like my second least favourite of the whole show. And I know Super Specs is in people's favourites, but I also know it gets a lot of hate. I enjoyed this episode. It's about halfway. It's pretty much the exact halfway point, because I enjoyed it. It's got some great stuff that I love, but it's also very silly. In particular, like the look of the people in the other universe that we see through the specs. They're just kind of silly to look at. They're not overly, massively visually threatening. The woman with the veil on is kind of creepy. And when they all start walking towards that girl on the basketball course, there's elements you can read into that are creepy. But overall, I just kind of find it a bit cheesy and a bit over the top. The music is way out there with this episode, but I find it fun. I quite enjoy the relationship, which is very progressive, between Mary Beth and... is it Weeds? Is Weeds in this episode? Ouija's laughing in the dark. Weeds. And the introduction of Sardo. No Mr. accent on the dough. So it's nice to see him again for the first time. Him again for the first time sounds weird. That's not grammatically correct, Scott. What are you doing? So there's elements of this that I really enjoy. I enjoy Sardo. I enjoy the relationship. And the really dark twist at the end that there's these two universes that are battling for the same space in existence. And the universe that is not ours, the one that we follow, wins. And our universe gets trapped in this crystal ball, potentially forever. That's super dark. So I really enjoy that. But yeah, this episode is kind of just middle of the road for me, because there's bits that I like, bits that are just silly, like the slow walk through the house with the kettle and the fire. And yeah, I think if they had made the other dimension look creepier, I think I would have enjoyed this episode even more. In 6th place, Kiki's only episode, The Tale of the Captured Souls. Again, another episode that I feel like gets a lot of hate, but I actually really enjoy it. It's just a really fun... I say that quite a lot with the show, but going up to like the top few episodes to get into the creepy side. But with Captured Souls, I feel like this is just fun. Kind of funny and weird and zany. Like, the main thing that stands out as kind of weird and fun for me is like when the kid presses the button. He's not a kid, he's an old man. But when he presses the button in his room and all the room starts transforming into this crazy mad scientist laboratory with the weird 90s music and the horns going. It's so over the top, but I love it. I enjoy the performances of the parents, they're quite nice. The main girl is quite a good protagonist because she realises very quickly something's going on and tries to fight it and stop it and tries to alert people to the problem. And she's quite a good protagonist in the sense that she's not stupid. She is always trying to get better for her parents. So, really enjoyed the episode. I understand why people don't like it because it's a bit stupid. And a lot of it is just running around covering mirrors up and changing mirrors and watching people get old. And the bit in the attic, I get why people don't like it, but I find it really fun. If you look at the really dark side of it, there's the kid who's actually obviously an old man, but he's killed women, men, children and dogs to preserve his own life. That's quite dark. I mean, come on. He's murdered a lot of people. Between Flynn and him, they're quite, they're pretty much mass murderers. But yeah, that was the tale of the Captured Souls. In fifth place, again, I think this is going to be quite a controversial one, The Tale of the Nightly Neighbours by Betty Ann. There's nothing that I don't like about this episode. This is where it's getting to the point where I kind of love everything about the episodes. There's just episodes that I just like more. Nightly Neighbours is just fun from the start to the finish. The performances by Day's a funny guy. Mary Beth, I guess, if I'm being nitpicky, is kind of an annoying character because she's not really approaching the situation smartly. Like when they went to the basement and they were trying to break into what turned out to be where the coffin was being kept with the master. She unlocked it and someone came into the room, so she locked it up and they hid away. But that person left the house, and rather than going, right, let's go in now. Now that the house is empty and we know how to unlock the thing, let's open it, let's see what's inside. They just leave. So she makes these weird decisions throughout the episode that are just stupid and don't make a lot of sense, but her mum is incredible. I'm late. It's actually one of my favourite things from the entire episode. The mum just basically clotheslines the postie, and rather than helping him, she just goes, I'm sorry, I'm late, and runs off. So funny, so funny. I enjoy the neighbours. They're quite a fun set of characters, from the mum and the dad to the kid, whose name is not coming back to me. Is it Zeke? I want to say Zeke. But yeah, the twist was good that they're not vampires, they're just working for the vampire who is the kid. Fun episode, really nice episode, not particularly scary at all, although there is the scene where the dad floats into the bedroom window, which is obviously a dream, but that's kind of like the scary moment in the episode. In fourth place, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, David's other story. Now for me, this has got to win the award for episode that surprised me the most, because going into this series with the mindset of I know I'm going to like this episode and I know I'm not going to like this episode isn't good, and I know I did that a little bit, and this episode surprised the hell out of me because I used to really dislike this episode, and I watched it and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. There's scary moments like where the ghost in the mirror appears and comes out and reaches towards the girl. Obviously it turns out the ghost isn't harmful, but my favourite parts of this episode, I enjoy the quite sad story that we learn about the ghost and the woman next door, that the ghost died in that room because she was chased, and then we get to reunite her with her mum, which is really sad because she's a sad lady that's been abused in that household because she's lost her daughter and she's really sad and they just hate her, and then she tries to leave, then she gets reunited with her daughter and it's really sad and really sweet and heartwarming, and they go off in the mirror together, and I love that. So sweet. But the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme of this episode is Beth. She's such a vile character, but I love the performance. Virtually every line that she has in this episode, she's sneering, oh, you're such a zeeb. She sneers all the time. She's got that high, fringe thing going on, the big ponytail, and she's just so unlikable. But I kind of love her for that because she's so horrible, and bitchy, and when the main girl, she's called Beth, not Beth. Amanda, I think she's called. Shakes the hand of the aunt or the older lady, and she comes out no, don't touch her wrinkly old hands or whatever it was she called her. It's just oh my god, you're such an awful person. But she does make the episode for me because she's so vile, but she's memorable, and I'd hate to be you. But yeah, really horrible character, but I nice character in Amanda. The aunt is funny when she goes when she sees the sign falling over. I enjoyed the sad story of the ghost. Good episode. Right, on to my top three, guys. In third place, The Tale of the Pinball Wizard. I knew that I was going to like this episode because I remember enjoying it so much as a kid, but I enjoyed this one so much more than I thought I would. Because I knew I'd like it, but I loved it. It was so fun and weird and zany, and there's witches, and there's robots, and there's giant pinballs, and there's like knights and princesses and a king and water guns and coins raining from the sky. It's just so weird. Such a weird episode that shouldn't work, I don't think. It should be so cheesy, and it is really cheesy. It kind of feels like a B movie. Do you like where they've got like high school costumes on? When you watch like a really cheap budget movie, and the acting's not great, and the bad guys aren't great, but it just works and it's fun. I love the tale of the Pinball Wizard for that. But yeah, the ending was so dark that he's got trapped in this pinball game forever, purely because he touched that guy's pinball machine. That the creepy owner was the villain of this episode. You don't really see him very much. He's in the beginning, and he's right at the end where he reveals that he's trapped the boy in the machine. So he's like so creepy, like predatory creepy. And I'd like to know more about him. Like if we just in an extra room and there's loads of pinball games in, and they've all got kids in, that would have been kind of cool. But yeah, he was so creepy. The witch was kind of creepy at times. But yeah, I think this episode just as a whole isn't remotely scary. Dark ending, don't get me wrong, and that's kind of twisted, but not scary. But like throughout the episode, there's no really scary bits at all. But it's just fun and zany and wacky, and just a really fun episode by Gary. Second place, I really did toss and turn between what to put first and what to put second with this series, because these two episodes I really loved. But ultimately, I settled on the second place, The Tale of the Dark Music by Eric. I am so glad that I don't remember much of this episode, and that's what I'm really excited moving forward into seeing more episodes that I don't remember, because this is so scary. I mean, oh my god, that doll thing when it came out of that basement, Jesus Christ, that scared me. And maybe I blocked it out, because I've seen every episode of the show once at least when I was a kid. I must have blocked that out of my memory altogether, because that's so fucking creepy. And the eyes in the darkness, and the carny that turns into a skeleton's creepy, and sucks the guy in through the air. There's just a lot of creepy moments in this episode that I think works so well. As this show is early 90s, I think it does sometimes suffer from bad CGI, bad graphics, bad physical effects and stuff, and some cheesiness. And there's elements of that in this episode, but I think overall it just really works with the scares, and just is creepy from most of the episode. It just works so well for a creepy factor. Again, with a super dark ending. Now this is like the darkest ending that we've got. Now, this boy is basically killing people. This young kid is feeding people to this basement demon for a bike, but ultimately going to be more, going to be money, power, whatever. He only killed the bully so far, or led the bully to his death. It hinted that he was going to feed his sister, but then Eric kind of said that he doesn't. But we can just assume that he's going to kill more people, and that is so dark. I mean, what my favourite part of this entire show is ones with dark endings. So looking at the list here, we've got Dark Music had a dark ending, Pinball Wizard had a dark ending, Nightly Neighbours, kind of, you can kind of say they didn't defeat the vampire, so we can carry on hurting more people. Super Specs had a dark ending, and also, in a way, Sorcerer's Apprentice, because they didn't stop Goth coming forward permanently, they just stopped that attempt. But his apprentice is still alive, carrying on the plans of getting forward, so potentially it's going to work in the future. So yeah, Dark Music. I really liked the main character. He's a bit dumb at times. Like, it took him too long to realise that music causes demons to come forward. Although saying that, it did appear like his memory was wiped, because the times where he didn't remember what happened. The bully was kind of one note, but he was funny. He did the weird punches. I liked the guitar riffs that came on when he appeared on screen. And it was nice to see him get some comeuppance. Even though I kind of feel sorry for him, because it was clear that his dad bullied him, and so maybe he shouldn't have been killed. But really scary episode, like the scariest episode, probably the entire season. And so I loved it for that. But yeah, Tale of the Dark Music. If you've never watched Are You Afraid of the Dark, and for some reason you tuned into this ranking, watch that one. It's scariest hits. And surprised me, because Eric's other one was quite low for me. But yeah, that was in second place. So if you know the show very well, or you're pretty much a big fan of season 1 of Are You Afraid of the Dark, you pretty much guessed that my favourite episode of the entire season 1 of Are You Afraid of the Dark is episode 2 from Betty Ann, The Tale of Laughing in the Dark. This episode is iconic. Even recently, I'm in a horror group on Facebook. I'm in a couple of different horror groups, and mostly they post about horror films and TV shows and stuff. And even yesterday, someone posted a picture of Zebo the clown and said like, if you not something like, if you know this clown, your childhood was great, and people saying how much they love the show. Zebo the clown has become such an iconic image for the show, because I think because it's one of the first episodes that was really scary, it really has stuck in a lot of people's minds. And a lot of kids are scared of clowns, which helps it. It was quite a creepy clown. Even though we never actually saw him outside of the fairground, we only ever saw him when he opened the door. There was just elements of his smoke and his footprint and just his voice and his laugh that we saw throughout that were just so memorable and so creepy. And I've had like some comments on that episode and the series as a whole, particularly from Captain N, I'm looking at you, about how much like Zebo affected like your childhood and gets stuck in your mind for so many years, and I loved it for that. Even though I think Tell the Dark music is scarier than this one in some ways, this episode is just iconic for me. I liked the main characters, even if it was a bit of a bully throughout. He went on like a character arc, which some of these episodes don't have. They kind of have protagonists that we follow, but they don't really end up in a different place from where they started off at. But ones that I like more are ones where they kind of end up kind of liking each other more or being better people at the end of it. Yeah, I don't know what more I can say that I haven't said about this episode throughout the whole series. But Laughing in the Dark is my favourite episode of series 1. I love it. It's creepy as tits. And yeah, if you've got friends that never watched You're Afraid of the Dark, I'd say personally show them my top 3 episodes as good episodes to kind of show the range of You're Afraid of the Dark, from really scary with Tell the Dark music, potentially really, really scary and creepy with Laughing in the Dark, and kind of zany with Pinball Wizard. Great 3 episodes, my top 3. And yeah, so that was my ranking of all 13 episodes of You're Afraid of the Dark. Let me know down below if you agree or don't agree. Now, before we wrap up, I want to have a quick look at every member of the Midnight Society from Season 1 and their stories. So, we have Frank, Betty Ann, David, Kristen, Gary, Kiki, and Eric. 7 members of the Midnight Society. And looking at their stories that they had, Frank had Phantom Cab, Betty Ann had Laughing in the Dark, Nightly Neighbours, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, David had Lonely Ghost and Twisted Claw, Kristen had Hungry Hounds and Prom Queen, Gary had Super Specs and Pinball Wizard, Kiki had Captured Souls, and Eric had Jake and the Leprechaun and Dark Music. So I mentioned it in the last episode, but I think it is weird how they've got 7 people, so they each could have had 2 episodes and they could have given one person 3. So I'm not like angry that Betty Ann got 3, because 2 of hers were quite high for me, one was kind of middle to low. But I feel like it was unfair on Kiki and Frank that they only got 1, whereas what they could have done is given one of Betty Ann's stories to Frank or Kiki, so that everyone would have had 2. One person would have had to have 1, and that's a shame, but hopefully in the next season they'll kind of be able to get more to match up for it. But yeah, so Betty Ann got the most in the series, and Frank and Kiki got the least, with 1 each. I'm not going to rank them all, I'm just going to say who my favourite Midnight Society member of story-wise is, and my least favourite. My least favourite, I have to say, is Kristen. Those 2 episodes are my least favourite of the entire series. I don't particularly like her as a character. I feel like she's not the most well-rounded character. She's kind of the pretty one who gets scared really easily, and that's fine. I don't dislike that. But I don't feel like she has a lot kind of going for her. Her stories are kind of boring. But I'm not really looking forward to her stories in Series 2 off the back of this. I'm hoping they get better. I'm hoping maybe if there was feedback after Series 1 aired, they might have tried to make her stories a bit more interesting. But just her as a character, the way she comes in with the dog, which has no really use for it, and dressed in that, meant to be a prom dress, but it's a wedding dress. I don't take to her. I don't particularly like her. So she's my least favourite. My favourite, I'd have to say, was probably Betty Ann. I think I've said it multiple times. She normally has the best stories, and I'm not going to put her at the top just because of that preconceived notion of her. But in terms of this series itself, while she had a mix of stories, like Laughing in the Dark was my number 1, Nightly Neighbours was near the top, and Sorcerer's Apprentice was kind of middle to bottom for me. Not because it was a bad story, I actually enjoyed the story, just a lot of plot holes, like I said. But like as a whole, like her stories I find like a better mix, and I enjoy her stories more. I'd say Gary was a close second, because I loved Pinball Wizard and I really enjoyed Super Specs. So Gary probably second up there, but Betty Ann and Gary are like near the top for me. Looking at the members of the Midnight Society as characters, I quite enjoy Frank, and he's like the bad boy that kind of always has the kind of look on his face, but he does enjoy being there. And I'd like to see more of him. He had got introduced in episode 1 and had the story there. I would like to see another story from him to kind of really gauge how good his stories are. and he's like the fashionable one. He has like the wears cut off tops, wears a lot of denim. I quite like the stuff he wears. Yeah, but Ayan I quite enjoy. She's quite a nice character. She's very supportive of other people. David was kind of a bit meh. He didn't really do a lot. He had that like semi crush on Kristen early on in the season. I think it was in Lonely Ghost, but they never really got touched on again. I wonder if they're going to talk about it in series 2, because I like to hear more about their backstories. But yeah, that kind of went nowhere. Talked about Kristen. Gary was fine. We don't really know much about him other than the fact that his dad owns a magic shop and he like put the gang together. He's okay. Doesn't really do a lot. He doesn't really have a lot of backstory given to him, so I can't really judge, but he's fine. I don't have anything to dislike about him. Kiki surprised me because I loved her when I was a kid. I was looking forward to seeing more of her, but she kind of annoyed me on this watch through. Some of the things she came out with were like super childish, and yes, I know she's a child. I'm not stupid, but I just kind of felt kind of annoyed by some of the stuff she was coming out with, and like if like everything that she said was like giving someone a dig or was kind of bitchy, and it's like, alright, just chill out a bit, Kiki, and just calm. And Eric, I did like Eric's character, I'm not going to lie. He was just a bit of a knob all the way throughout. I liked injecting the leprechaun. They gave him a bit more backstory with his grandpa, and I felt sorry for him, and that was nice to see like a nice side to him. And if he'd had that character throughout, if he was like the caring one and the sweet one, I could have really liked him and got behind him. But because most of the time he was a bit of a dick, I didn't particularly like Eric. I'm not sad that he's not going to be in Series 2, although I would like to see some growth from him. But yeah, guys, that's my ranking and review of Series 1 of You Afraid of the Dark. Some really good episodes, some really 2 or 3 really good scary episodes, and some good zany ones, some bit boring ones. But I think that's going to be, every season's going to have episodes that I like and don't like. The show's such a very, any kind of anthology show has that kind of format. It's always going to have episodes that you like and don't like. So I'm really excited to watch Series 2. Yeah, just please let me know, guys, if you're enjoying the series. I am definitely going to go into Series 2 because I'm enjoying the series so much. And yeah, please let me know down below if you agree, if you don't agree, what members of the Midnight Society do you like, what members you don't like, who's your favourite, which stories do you love from Series 1, and which stories do you love from Series 2, we haven't watched Series 2 yet, which stories do you not love from Series 1. So yeah, please leave some comments below, leave me some love. I really appreciate every comment that I get. Thanks for watching, guys. As usual, my name is Scott. I hope you're well and take care of yourselves and staying safe. There's some videos to my right you might want to take a look at. If you enjoy You Afraid of the Dark, please check out Creeped Out or Tales from the Crypt. Very similar kind of shows. You might enjoy those. And yeah, that's it for Series 1. I'm really excited to watch Series 2. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. Might be a couple of weeks yet, but we'll see. Hope you take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all for Series 2. Bye, guys.